Good morning to our dear speakers and guests. There are a lot of things I want to say and we need to discuss today. So I will use some notes if you don't mind. Changing education to change the world is a great title. Indeed, the world is changing. Society's demand for educational formats is changing. And so education must respond to current demands and adapt to these shifts. But for the world to change, we need catalysts. And education also serves this purpose. That is, education both follows change and becomes a catalyst for this change. Today at this session, we will hear about two unique research projects. A report demonstrating international trends in education and a report analyzing real-life solutions for promoting industry-specific knowledge and nuclear energy literacy that will help raise awareness about sustainable energy solutions and pave the road to net zero. Please give the warmest welcome to the panelists who are joining us on the stage and online here today. Joyce Mendes, co-founder of Latin American Observatory of Geopolitics of Energy, Paraguay. Princess Mtombeni, founder, Africa for Nuclear, South Africa. Jiao Jun Yuan, Director of China, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Technology Transfer Center, China. Diana Koroleva, Director of Laboratory for Educational Innovation Research at Institute of Education of Higher School of Economics, Russia. Diana is online with us today. Joshua Gabriel Olwasei, Storyteller, Executive Director, Leon Blue, Nigeria. And my name is Taras Pashchenko. I'm leading expert, Institute of Education, Higher School of Economics, and I will be your moderator for this session. Firstly, with great pleasure, I would like to give the floor to Diana Koroleva, Higher School of Economics, Laboratory of Innovation Director. Ms. Koroleva, for the second time, the Higher School of Economics, now with the support of Rosatom, has conducted a study analyzing pedagogical trends that have the potential to affect the entire educational system. You have been exploring how education adjusts, changes, emerges from the crisis of the pandemic. Knowledge of these trends should help all stakeholders to create conditions for the growth and development of relevant initiatives, innovators to position themselves on the map of innovation, and education professionals to find the tools they need. Please, tell us more about key findings of the study. How relevant global trends will be for the educational landscape in Russia in 2023? Which of the new tools our teaching community is already actively using? And what tendencies have the potential to transform the whole education system in the next 5 to 10 years?
Hello, Taras. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yeah, we can hear you well.
I'm excited. Thank you. I'm excited to present today the result of our scientific research, Global Education Trends 2023 in the Russian context, which we this year organized with Rosatom. As a basis for this research, we took very well-known international report called Innovative Pedagogy. This report every year, already during last decades, nominate 10 promising innovations, 10 promising trends that have not yet had a significant influence on education, but deserve an attention. And we show these trends to Russian innovators who works both inside and outside education system. So they are school teachers, university professors, or startuppers, and even parents who take care of the future of their children. The important thing that they develop the innovative project, so we can call them innovators. They are representative from 60 regions of Russia. We also show these trends to an expert of the field, and we didn't forget about learners. So how we were able to evaluate 10 international trends and see how they work in a Russian education context. So let's have a look on these trends, what we have here. We grouped them in three big groups. First, we called digital and tech survey, and here we can have three big and very important trends. First is a hybrid learning. A combination of classroom and online learning is more often noted by innovators in the big cities. Experts warn that the hybrid format is impossible without particular training the teachers and building the infrastructure, for example, in the villages. It is very important also to note that we are speaking about digital transformation, not about digitizing, so just simple transforming typical classroom tasks and so on in online format. It should be real transformation. Most of the secondary school and university students who we spoke with noted that despite the convenience of the hybrid format, face-to-face education is more efficient for them. That's quite interesting. Next trend we have here is an influencer-led education. So the idea is that gaining knowledge today, we can also in a social media, social network. It's in the intersection of education and entertainment. And from one side, it can fill the gaps in formal education and increase motivation for learners. On the other hand, we all understand that the quality of the content produced by popular bloggers is not always very high. However, if talented teachers learn to use social media, learn how to use this tool, it will be a win-win. They can expand their audience, and students will learn the subject using the format which is familiar and convenient for them. Next trend, also quite interesting, it's watch parties. So the idea that we watching video together is a way to engage people to collective learning, even we stay very far from each other. Expert opinion regarding this trend is divided. Some of them think that it's a very good tool to build their communication skills and understanding of art, for example, while others say that students remains very passive in this case. So instead, co-production of videos or selection of video materials by the students would be more efficient for developing creative skills and critical thinking. Modern learners know very well about this trend, but they know that they quite often become distracted while they're watching long videos. So they suggest to use some short videos for specific training purposes. And here is again a big question about the ability for teachers to use this kind of tool. So that was the first group of trends. Let's go to the second one, study and work from a distance. Here we have a micro-credential trend. We know that today employees have to keep acquiring new skills and knowledge. And they have a new instrument to prove their qualification. It's non-degree certificates, digital badges, or academic credits. More than half of the innovators supporting this trend. The experts predict the pedagogies of micro-credential will grow in Russia. In some professional fields, such as programming or law, micro-credential have long become standard practice. However, implementation of this practice, of this trend, requires a major rethinking of the education process, especially in higher education, we can say. Automous learning, quite important trend. The idea of proactive position of the student who are ready to take a responsibility for the education result. Experts emphasize its importance, especially for older students and adults. If we speak about school children from the studies, we know that this trend is most relevant for motivated students, usually from highly educated families. So it is again a big challenge for education and educators to teach students to be autonomous learners. Next group of trend we call non-digital aspects. I would say that they have roots in a COVID-19 situation. So it's post-pandemic, post-shock trends. And they are almost all of them. They are related to well-being topic, to mental health idea. Let's look closer to them. So the first one trend is a pedagogy, is a well-being education. So the idea that we should teach students about their mental health education, including self-diagnosis and self-help, as well as providing the information on where and when to get help. This trend is not widespread in Russia, mainly supported by younger generation, while older struggle to recognize the importance of psychological support and mental health literacy, unfortunately. Reflection of negative emotion, I would say related to the previous one. This trend is especially popular among young innovators. Again, experts noted that in Russia, this trend is underdeveloped, but highly needed. It is related to the social and emotional skills of teacher and student, and could help prevent school bullying and social discrimination. I would say that to scale it up, both of these trends, it is necessary to build a system of help centers. It is important to see the international structure, international standards, and diagnostic tools. It is very important possibility for scaling to adopt some international practice and find some particular innovations in Russia. Pedagogies of the home, or we can call it home as a learning environment. This trend caused mixed emotion in the audience, because on the one hand, it is very important to take into account the students' home circumstances. From pandemic, I would say we all know how it is important the place where we are working or studying, how comfortable it is, how quiet it is. On the other hand, active and environment intervention of the school, of the education system into the family space can harm the relationship between students, parents, and teachers. So on the other hand, parents will participate in the education process more actively. This is prediction of the experts. In the short term, the trend is unlikely to spread in mass education in Russia. As you can see from statistics, it's not very much supported by innovators for the moment. And walk and talk trend. So this idea, I would say, not very new. The idea of studying, learning, not inside the classroom, but also outside. The possibility of learning while walking is especially popular with urban occupant, and also providing supplementary education service. Experts didn't support this trend much, also innovators, but their opinion was that not for all school subjects subjects that this trend can work. But for such discipline as architecture or environment studies, leaving the classroom can be very useful. And I'm very sorry, I missed one of the strand, which called dual learning in classroom and industry workplaces. I would say that this idea is very much discussed during last decades, but it is still lack of resources invested by both universities and employees. While school and university students generally assess the trend positively, they know that they would like the workplace practice to be paid. So here we have these 10 international trends and opinion of innovators, experts, and learners about how these trends can work in a Russian education ecosystem, Russian education landscape. Let's sum up it and come to conclusion. So almost half of the trends described in the Innovating Pedagogy report refer to non-digital aspects of pedagogy: family environment, reflection of emotion, impact of psychological and mental well-being, and etc. However, we see that these trends are less pronounced in Russia, and there are barriers and their expansion. Anyway, it is very important area for growth. And I would say that scientific research is needed, support for similar activities is needed, and also demonstration for the best ideas, as for example, we do on a competition for educational innovations, is very much needed to spread this trend in Russian education. The next idea is that we see a study highlight the relevance for this mixed online and offline practice intersection in Russia. So it's hybrid learning, online micro-credential. All these trends depend on one's ability to learn independently and design one's own education trajectory, consisted by small steps. Therefore, the autonomous learning can be considered the overreaching trend for 2023. And the last idea we have here, study highlight the relevance of networking and collaboration in learning. New actors have come into the section of education. New channels for obtaining knowledge and skills emerged. New ways to create a study group appears. It suggests that teachers and teacher training should also focus on it. This is a new tool which could be used in education, but it should be some particular preparation. I would like to thank all participants of this research, our innovators in education, experts and learners who give their opinion about these international trends. I would like to invite you to read the full version of this research. And I would say that this report could be interested for teachers, policymakers, education consultants, academics, students, and researchers, everyone who are interested in pedagogical innovation and future learning scenarios. Using this lens we show today, we can understand where is the deficit existing in the education system and what barriers need to be removed to allow the flow of innovation into the education system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. This applause for you. Thank you for the presentation. The trends look really curious. I agree that reflection, especially reflection of negative emotions, which connected with discomfort pedagogy, is crucial to improve communication and personal well-being. And our next speaker, Mr. Jun Yuan. You are the initiator of the SEO Youth Innovation and Entrepreneurship Contest, Secretary General of the SEO International Alliance for Technology Exchange, co-founder of the SEO Youth Incubator, and the Vice Chairman of the Qingdao Xinan District Youth Federation. In adopting the 2030 agenda in September of 2015, the global community recognized the fact that education is key to achieving all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. However, over the course of the past few years, the global education system has gone through countless twists and turns. Please share with us your vision and goals for the near future. How do SCO member states intend to cooperate and exchange experience and best practices? What are the key learning trends in the region now? And what strategies do you use to boost youth leadership and engagement in learning?
Okay, thanks for your question. And it's my honor to share with you here. And also, thanks for the conference preparation team. And first, I would like to introduce the basic information of China-Shanghai Cooperation Organization Transfer Center so that you can understand us. The center is a national foreign cooperation platform established with the support of Chinese government and the SCO Secretariat, mainly serving governments, universities, and enterprises in countries along the Belt and Road. And its main work is to help you carry out the two tasks of technology information and market expansion, such as joint R&D, joint education, talent introduction, and international trade. With our headquarters in Qingdao, China, we currently have a collaborative center in many cities along the Belt and Road, such like Tashkent, Astana, London, and other countries. We just established the Moscow center last month, and including many in China, like Beijing, Shanghai, Jiangyin, Qingdao, other cities. So we also have an incubator and industrial founders, okay, for the commercial scenes. Back to the topic. As you said, that the global education system has gone through countless twists and turns. I think there are many reasons, such as problem with pandemic scenes, and the international situation is unsettled. In my opinion, education should be a more important role in helping the healthy development of a society. If we want to solve this problem, we need to grasp the trend of educational development. So I propose that innovation is the core of future education. As you member state, especially China education system, has been well developed in recent years, forming two relatively large groups of students. One is for higher education, and the other for vocation and skills education. It's like a 50-50. And there will not be a significant gap in employment income between those two groups. The main difference is work environment and development space. It's worth nothing that in either education, there will be innovations in teaching content and teaching tools, based on the trend and the current situation of the industry, in order to enable students to be more successful in their future job. China has made a lot of innovation in higher education. For example, by increasing cooperation with overseas universities, providing students with a different learning environment through 2+2 or 3+1 and other joint programs, increasing investment in research equipment, especially basic research, so that teachers can lead students to conduct experiments in a better environment. Most universities have their own incubators to encourage students to start their own business under the guidance of teachers, and have the opportunity to participate in various competition, giving them the chance to directly face investors or entrepreneurs. Universities are also adding many new majors, such as technology broker, biological science, and to give students more options when studying. As for vocational education, each school has also made a lot of innovation. For example, in curriculum development, cooperation with large enterprises for equipment for curriculum development, so that the students trained will be more easily employed in enterprises. Schools will also make continuous adjustment according to the development of market, such as the transformation of traditional auto maintenance industry and to electric vehicle maintenance. In short, no matter how higher education or vocational educations, as long as innovation is carried out, curriculum will be more meaningful and attract young people. For example, AI, VR, and other majors that are popular now. In the future, we look forward to work with you to make innovation in education. Thanks a lot.
Great report. Thank you, Mr. Jun Yuan. I believe that sharing practices and experience are essential to develop cooperation between states and the nations, even in curriculum development themes and problems. Now, I would like to give the floor to Joyce Mendes, co-founder of Latin American Observatory of Geopolitics of Energy and a member of the Impact Team 2050. Launched at the previous Global Impact Conference. This advisory council and the partnership between Rosatom and young leaders from all over the world is devoted to promoting and fostering youth-driven, sustainable solutions and achieving the SDGs by introducing your vision for the future of the green agenda and making the labor market better focused on the youth demands. But before I do that, let's watch a short video together, created by the Impact Team 2050 to see how they envision Education 2050.
We see education as a key factor that impacts the future. It's beyond Rosatom, beyond nuclear, and even beyond energy. It's the matter of our generation.
We now have the largest generation of young people in the history, with only 46% employed. In sub-Saharan Africa, more than 70% of people are under the age of 30.
Worldwide, only 32 countries operate nuclear power plants, and the rest, 161, don't. That's the same world where 2.5 billion people cook with wood.
We witness a lack of general knowledge about how nuclear energy works and also basic energy knowledge in Brazil.
In total, there are only 2 universities in Uzbekistan where you can study nuclear energy.
Nuclear energy is often portrayed in Argentina as technology available only in the developed countries.
So as humanity, we have all the tools and the advanced technologies that we need in order to solve our problems related to energy. But it turns out that the main problem we face is lack of literacy and various misconceptions at all levels.
To educate people on clean energy future, we should work with what I call 5 Ps, and those are policymakers, politicians, public, professionals, and press.
First, policymakers should switch the paradigm. That is, focus on the economic risks from continued reliance on hydrocarbons.
As impact team, we believe in order to increase our impact, we should be building a worldwide education ecosystem and transform Rosatom's competence centers into public knowledge hubs accessible for all.
Achievements and multi-sector expertise that Rosatom collected throughout the years have stepped beyond power of nuclear, while it has always been a core. Why don't we invite everyone to dive into this ocean?
What if there is no knowledge hub in the nearby?
There should be an online platform connected to all centers around the world that provides necessary reports, workshops, training, and expert advice from Rosatom, business, academia, public and private entities, as well as NGOs. The first knowledge hub is already there, and young people in the city of Nizhny Novgorod have a common place to exchange ideas and learn more about atoms and how they can make people's lives better.
This is how we see the future of education for Rosatom as the younger generation.
How do you see education by 2050?
Ms. Mendes, thank you for this highly motivative video. You and Ms. Mtombeni have been working on the Education X report to pave the path to the sustainable and resilient education of the future. What challenges and opportunities in the sphere of education could you highlight on a macro level?
Bom dia. Buenos dias. Thank you very much for the question. And I think I could not say it better than my colleagues from the Global Impact team. Guys, can you please just stand up, like, for people to get to know you? Come on. I think what we have done in the past, actually it's been 2 heavy, intense months of work developing the report. The report shares the vision of the team in the next decade, actually, for education, sustainability, innovation, and obviously taking into account youth into these aspects. So there are many things I want to share, but actually what we wanted to do in this report, it was to show the different areas from education, capacity building, technology transfer, into like building energy transition awareness in young people. But as well, how the new generation and how we are addressing the major stakeholders like NGOs, communities, business, and governments. But the idea is to promote this impact from youth to youth as a peer-led education process as well. So there are many challenges, and I want to as well share kind of a personal story that we took into reference as well the different generations and the ages of the youth we want to target, but at the same time we realize how COVID-19, as I mentioned before, had a huge impact in what we think is a meaningful job, but as well remote jobs in education, as well as we saw an increase of the desertion rates in schools, in universities, and even questioning the paradigm of education. And at the same time, we realize that 2/3 of the world's youth, they don't feel they are ready or competent enough in their fields, or maybe their knowledge is already outdated, especially when it comes down to energy. We see it's changing. It's a sector that is changing and transforming really fast. I was educated in Brazil, so I remember what I learned in university, and when I went into the field, it was different. Like things were changing really fast. And also we see, especially SDG 7, which is access of technology, access of electricity, clean electricity, we are not meeting the target by 2030. We still have 700 million people without access of electricity. I come from one of those regions. Originally, I'm an indigenous person from Colombia, and then we emigrated to the border of Brazil and Paraguay, Argentina. But my family didn't have access to electricity. Actually, we had to study with the street lights. And we realized when electricity got into our neighborhood, it did change people's lives. Now, taking into account that, around more than 2 billion people, they cook, they don't have clean cooking methods. All of this, plus climate change, it does generate a pressure on our generation and the expectations on what we want to do. And I remember as well during pandemics, I was questioning myself, like, why am I into sustainability? Why am I into energy transition? Especially whenever we were far away from each other. And the work was mainly focused as well in community, in working among people and to see the people, actually. And then everything was digitalized. How we give meaning to that and how we offer as safe, and as it was mentioned before as well, taking into account mental health, which is a fundamental issue as well for our generation. So all of these are kind of the main challenges that and even more, I invite you as well to check the report. But then we also analyze certain opportunities in those fields. And we see that the fact that our generation has been more connected, interconnected, it gives us kind of a more like a sense of a community. Obviously, we don't see people completely in person, but we are connecting with different realities from all over the world. As well, I think that the fact that we are having all of these challenges, we are vibrant agents into changing aspects in environment and also governmental issues. And the fact that also we have to be successful into all these challenges, we are addressing two things, which is the sustainable transition and at the same time the jobs gaps. So green jobs, they do respond to needs that we are facing at the moment. And the paradigm shift, I will also include into that part, because for many regions of the world, we do not have an option if we don't move towards a sustainable transition. I think that I have a colleague as well here from Paraguay, Camila, and she will relate that in Paraguay we are reaching a lot of high temperatures. During winter this year, we reached 39 Celsius degrees in the north of the country. Winter. Now summer is getting up to, 42, 45 in the capital. Now think someone that doesn't own a car, you walk, you go to work, 12 hours, and you face that reality. Plus, water stress that impacts in food production, energy production, especially in the case of South America. We have a lot of hydroelectricity, and food, energy, and water is being compromised. How can you show a future to that youth if you don't really try to do a paradigmatic change in how things are working, especially education? And as it was mentioned before, innovation is a fundamental aspect. So it's as well an invitation on how to you question in how education in your region, but also how energy transition is taking place, and you will see that both are completely intertwined. Obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mendes. I saw a draft of the report, Education X report. I think that it was a great work to mine and interpret all of this data. Now I think we need to start to implement these findings in policies in the name of a sustainable future. Ms. Tombeni, with nuclear energy being one of the most impactful ways to advance the net zero transition, we need to focus on nuclear knowledge management and education. What does the nuclear industry need to do in order to advance education from preschool and lower school levels to the tertiary level? And how do we scale this solution and make them accessible?
Thank you so much for the question. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be back on stage. I joined nuclear industry when at a very young age, and at that time, I knew nothing about nuclear, not even bombs, literally nothing. And immediately when I joined, I took a decision to embark on a self-development or self-equipment, just so that I understand exactly what's happening in this industry. And immediately after I learned about the benefits of nuclear or different nuclear applications, I took a decision to educate people. And I'm thinking that, imagine if I learned about nuclear earlier on, half of the pseudo-environmentalist and anti-nuclear lobby groups would be dealt with. Off the record. Anyway, let me come back to the question. I do believe that as parents and sisters, brothers, we have families, we have kids in our families who are still young, and when people are young or when kids are young, they listen attentively. Like if you have a headache and you tell them that you heal headache by getting tablets or headache tablets, they will grow up knowing that. And if we tell kids at home that nuclear, or when somebody is sick, or even when they are watching television and somebody is sick of cancer, and if we start explaining about the cancer, treatment or nuclear, medicine to kids, they will grow up knowing what nuclear medicine is all about. And also, if we explain things such as food irradiation technique to them, to say some of the products that you get from the shelf, they are written irradiation, and then we start explaining those things. I know that from work, when you go home, we get there tired and wanting nothing to do with work. But it's very important that we instill nuclear education at a very young age. I'm also thinking that, what if we have, energy plan or energy planning games? Teach kids how to, plan for energy or to have like energy mix, because it's very important that they understand why we need energy mix that involves many energy sources, and then why do we need all those sources, because really I do believe that we need energy mix and not just particular energy sources. So we need to teach them why it's important for a country to have the energy mix, so that they are able to address many socio-economic challenges. And also, when I think about high schools, there's very little, I don't know about Russia, but where I come from, there's very little knowledge about, or there's very little information in the curriculum about nuclear. And if we were to add more, or even a module or a subject altogether about nuclear at a high school level, it would make a lot of difference. And so I do believe that as the industry, we need to partner with the government, educational institutions. We start by converting the already existing schools to become nuclear schools, so that we are, we change the curriculum altogether to focus on nuclear. And we have tried that in South Africa, to partner with the Department of Education to change about 4 schools to become nuclear schools. It's still in the process. And I think if that becomes successful, we would be able to build nuclear schools all together as the industry, to have our own schools that are focusing on nuclear technology. And also, when in South Africa, there's a site earmarked for a nuclear build program. It's in the Eastern Cape, which is one of the most impoverished provinces in South Africa. There's very lack of economic development in that area. So if the industry could go there and educate kids or young people in that area about the benefits of having this nuclear program coming into their area, how it's going to contribute to changing their lives, or even, having economic, activities happening in the area, and more people getting jobs. That would make a lot of difference. And also, when we get to the university or tertiary institution level, in South Africa, there are only 3 universities that offer undergraduate nuclear qualifications. And if we could have more of those, universities offering that course. But I do understand in the case of Africa, because there's really not much when it comes to nuclear programs or development programs. But we do need to change that and say, let's have universities, offering that course, so that people or young people do not meet nuclear qualifications when they have to do their postgraduate qualification. And in closing, I'd like to say, a quote by one of my favorite former African leaders. He's late, Mr. Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso, who once said, "He who feeds you controls you." And I'm in a country of people who feed themselves and therefore are controlled by no one. And as an Impact team member of 2050, my vision for 2050, over and above what the Director General said in the morning, which is the clean planet and happy people, I envision African nations that feed themselves. Thank you so much.
Ms. Tambeni, thank you for this insightful speech. I really like the idea about energy literacy or nuclear literacy. Maybe it could be the part of ecological literacy, which kids in school have in different parts of the world, with financial literacy and health literacy and so on and so on. It looks like really important for a sustainable future to know all of this and to make decisions with it. Okay, Ms. Mendes. Ms. Tambeni has touched upon that in her speech, but I know that you are an expert in this field as well. Please tell us more about the educational strategies that could help support the knowledge transfer and foster technological awareness and energy literacy needed to unleash the full potential of the renewables and nuclear energy efficiency industry.
Sure. So I also will comment on my personal story, how maybe creating organizations, we go to develop public policies and improving people's awareness and lives regarding energy. So where I grew up, we have the second biggest hydroelectrical plant, like with the biggest installed capacity of the world. So we were very aware on either the effects of what electricity production brings to a community, but as well the social environmental aspects. And at the same time, it is a transboundary region. So we know that climate change and other issues, they don't have borders. So we created at the border inside the Latin American University for Integration, UNILA, a center of research, which is the Geopolitics Observatory of Energy. We focus mainly in Mercosur region because we wanted to understand the dynamics on how the countries are either cooperating or maybe their vulnerabilities towards certain aspects of integration. Energy integration, not just in infrastructure, but in economical level, but as well in knowledge transfer, which is a big thing as well for Latin America and Global South. We see there are some countries, especially Argentina, Brazil, South, North, Mexico, that they handle and they manage the Orion cycle. However, we have realized that through cooperation, we are we reach faster sovereignty. And also we push as well forward the agenda for us to have that knowledge and not just to, not to maybe get, knowledge from outside and maybe we don't understand in how to develop. So I have seen as well throughout, we created Observatory 2014. So we have seen in the last years kind of a conjunctural analysis of the region, and I will answer that. Obviously, we have a ministerial cooperation that needs to take place, as well governments, into this knowledge transfer, but as well into bringing and developing the technical capacity. So we don't buy the technology, but we develop it, and this is very important. It takes a lot of cooperation, dialogues in order to develop, and takes cash to care, financing as well. In the other hand as well, we realize that building bridges with communities and NGOs are fundamental. So the creation of grassroots movements are fundamental, like observatories, civil society, and other methods, in order to map, but also to monitor that those decisions are taking places and how we translate that technology transfer into public policies at a local level. As well, I believe NGOs, they have an amazing role into this alphabetization or energy literacy. I have seen just a comment. I used to work during pandemics. There was in certain regions of Rio de Janeiro, like the favelas, the lack of electricity access was an issue because you have people who they don't actually can social distance, kids inside the houses. So I started contributing with a project of solar energy in the favelas and how to see how social engineering takes place and how NGOs are a catalyst for energy transition in a localized level. It made me realize the importance of the NGOs. And as well, businesses, they take their place into this conversation regarding innovation, as we saw, but the connection as well, and making and employing those professionals that they will have expectations of and staying in the countries, and maybe we don't have brains leaving the countries or leaving our region. So I believe as well that it has to be more implemented energy and climate entrepreneurship in schools, in universities, as a way of starting creating, the idea and environment for these innovations and the adoption of these innovations in society. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, finally, I would like to give the floor to Joshua Gabriel Olowasei, storyteller, executive director, Lone Blue, Nigeria. Mr. Olowasei, the Innovating Pedagogy 2022 report mentioned influencer-led education as one of the key trends. What do you think about edu-influencers, and how can universities adapt social influencer approaches to expand their reach? What are the key tendencies disrupting the education market could you highlight?
Thank you so much. Hi, so before I proceed, I know we've been watching all over the world, so I'm just going to say hello in a number of languages. Hola, privyet, I think. Buenos dias, good morning, ciao, guten Morgen. Okay, so before I get into the innovation or innovating Pedagogy 2022 report, I'm going to tell a short story. I'm a storyteller after all. So basically, in 2019, I had an interview with a radio station in my country, NTA. And on my way out of the studio, I noticed a canal, if you will, that was polluted with a lot of non-biodegradable waste, styrofoam. And I took a photo of it. And weeks later, I was going to work, and in a major hub, marketing hub in Lagos State, I saw something similar, an entire drainage channel that had a lot of pollution in it, basically, which was detrimental to public health. And so what I did was I took another photo, and I made a tweet. In that tweet, I highlighted why this is a problem. I highlighted how it affected public health. I highlighted why there needed to be something done about it, and how people can do something about it. I had a lot of friends who are influencers who had a lot of reach on Twitter at the time, so I asked them to help me push it out. And that tweet went viral in my region. So basically, we had over 100,000 people see it. But what that did was, that thread of about 5 separate tweets essentially created an entire movement. It was then rebranded to something we call the hashtag for a cleaner Lagos, which is a city. I basically had used social media, without knowing, of course, I had used social media to educate hundreds of thousands of young people in my city, so much so that we could take that education from an online movement to offline. So we had hundreds of volunteers who came together across days to mobilize and clean up over 40,000 pounds of waste from those drainage channels and have them recycled. So reading the Innovating Pedagogy 2022 report, I was so blown away with the accuracy and the depth of the research. I think as somebody who is very characteristically Gen Z, I've got white hair, I'm very bougie, and I use TikTok a lot. I think there is need for universities or institutions to adapt how they teach, because I'm studying statistics in my school. I talk about this a little more in depth in my keynote that follows. But I study statistics, and through my entire time in university, my best courses and my best classes are often with the teachers who are social media savvy, the ones who know what's happening, the ones who can, instead of talking about a very strict topic, casually put in the latest trending song on TikTok and use it as a way to drive home a point. So I think edu influencers can, or universities better still, can look into edu influencers and see how they retain audience attention, especially in a generation like mine, where attention span keeps getting shorter. Since 2020, the pandemic till now, it is significantly, TikTok usage has significantly grown, but user retention or our attention span for Gen Z has significantly shortened. So what are influencers doing, edu influencers specifically, what are YouTube creators doing that would let me, a Gen Zer who doesn't have a long attention span, sit through a 30-minute video and hear them talk about why the World Cup is happening in Qatar, or why pollution is bad, or why carbon footprint is a myth. That's something that I think the report sort of chronicles. How can institutions adapt that approach? But I think also with social influencers, young people now more than ever are becoming very confident in expressing themselves. So unlike previously, peer-to-peer learning has become so accessible. Young people are, somebody mentioned this, I think that was Sergey during his talk, how if you're sharing ideas with people, if you're learning with people, if you're watching a video with people, it's a lot easier to remember what you're talking about because that's the conversation. It's not a figure that's essentially teaching you. It's, you know, peer-to-peer learning. And social media amplifies that greatly, because now I'm here and I'm essentially conversing with people from at least 15 countries watching this. I'm here, I was able to reach out to the team and you know, get to be here. I'm here, and I know once I'm done with this speech, I'm going to go on Twitter, I'm going to talk about what I just talked about here and reach hundreds of thousands of people because of social media. And I am sure that what I'm saying would be retentive to them because, well, there is a story, but also because I, more than perhaps the older generation, can relate to them. I can sprinkle in, you know, a trend. I can use hashtags. I can drive home my points by being part of an existing conversation. I think that's all young people really need. Just they want to feel like, or we want to feel like we're understood. We want to feel like people are not just seeing us as the social media savvy people. We want people to understand that using social media, education can go a long way. Greta Thunberg, a fellow climate activist, she started her work as somebody who campaigned in front of the Swedish parliament week after week saying Fridays for Future, and that got on Twitter, and exploded, and then you've got millions of young people every year who are marching for climate change. That started on social media. So how can universities basically look at what has been done with social media, with hashtags, and slowly, but obviously steadily, adapt that into everyday classrooms and outside of classrooms? How can we look at social media beyond its flaws, because it's got a lot of flaws, obviously, but how can we look at it past that and say, yes, there are bad things in social media, what about the good aspects, and how can we leverage that to make education more fun and interesting? I think that's something the Innovating Pedagogy 2022 report sort of chronicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olvasei. Thank you for the fresh insights. Unfortunately, the most of social media forbidden in Russia, but we still have YouTube Shorts and Telegram until they get too much influence. Okay, thank you for your reports. And now, after we have met with this really informative and insightful reports and presentations, I would like to invite our respected speakers and our dear guests for a discussion. We have maybe 5 to 10 minutes for general discussion, joint discussion. Who will start? You can ask a question for our speakers, or maybe one of the speakers want to ask each other about something. Okay. We need a microphone. Okay, but we have a translation.
Thank you very much. My name is Laura Chiconia. I'm also a member of Impact Team. And I have a question regarding nuclear education in countries which do not yet have a nuclear program. What do the speakers think about taking the first steps, even if governments haven't yet made that decision or taken that step? Is there a point? And if so, how do you think it could impact the decision-making process on the level of government to go ahead and start the process of introducing nuclear? Thank you.
Yeah, we can use open microphone, so just push.
Да, пожалуйста, можно отвечать.
Thank you, Laura, for the question. As the member of the Impact Team, you have a responsibility to take nuclear education to those countries and educate them, because it's very important that they understand what nuclear is going to bring to them. How is nuclear going to change their life, or the nuclear programs are going to change their lives, because that's the most important part, especially in Africa. We really, not that careless, but we are not more for climate, but we are more for urgent issues such as addressing, energy poverty. So it's very important that when you take nuclear education, you speak about the socio-economic challenges that are facing those countries. And then because when they now start to understand the people on the ground, they will make noise, and that noise will eventually lead to a political will. So that's basically my answer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for an answer. Another questions, please. Yes?
So I just want to quickly, this is not a question, it's just an answer, if you will. On our previous conversation, you asked what are the key tendencies are disrupting the educational market that I could highlight. As somebody who comes from a developing nation, during the pandemic, I had no access to my teachers, basically. I was out of school for 8 months. So what happened then, and Sergey touched on this briefly, was I began focusing on micro degrees, if you will. So Udemy, Udacity, there are a lot of platforms where you can learn skills. I learned user experience design. I learned more on public speaking. I learned about Figma, Adobe Photoshop, video editing. I almost became a YouTuber. I was this close, but I didn't make it. But, so tendencies or key tendencies disrupting the educational market are things like that. Universities need to, or standard institutions need to look into, again, Harvard does this already. They offer micro courses. I know for a fact that I got an email this morning inviting me for some MBA thing online next year. So how can we do more of that? Because the job market is changing so rapidly. The generation that's following it is changing as well. Now more than ever, people do not necessarily want to go through a 3-year degree or a 3-year process to acquire a piece of paper when you could just learn something online easily. So how can existing institutions begin to perhaps tailor their courses in a way that you could study for 2 months or 3 months, like a boot camp, or 6 months, and essentially learn enough that would make you employable, because employability is a big issue, at least from my part of the world, right? So that's something I just wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you. Da, yes, please, microphone.
Following on Josh's response, would you elaborate on the role of the teacher in modern school? How is it changing? Do we need teachers in modern school?
I think we do, obviously. I've had this conversation a lot of times where people are like, so are robots going to replace teachers? No. We do need teachers. They're teachers for a reason. The job of a teacher is to impart knowledge. The job of a YouTuber is to, for the most part, make that process fun. So you do need teachers. Teachers, conventional teachers, I've spent, Sergey mentioned this again, when you've been in an industry for so long, you often forget sort of how it was when you started. So teachers exist to vet the information of edu-influencers. There is a need for that. I recently watched a video where a popular YouTuber, Johnny Harris, an investigative reporter with Vox Media, made a whole content about the history of, I think, some European country. And, you know, this video had millions of views, but it took a teacher, an actual historian, to basically say, hey, I know you've got a lot of reach, but the content you're essentially putting out is not entirely true or correct. So he was fact-checked. And that's essentially what teachers can do. Your jobs, or the jobs of teachers in the modern educational system, would be to fact-check whatever their students are reading online, and ensuring that in the process of trying to make education more fun through storytelling, important information and statistics are actually still being communicated. Thank you.
Or teacher can be an influencer too. Why not?
True, true. We do have a lot of teacher influencers.
Okay. Any questions, remarks, judgments? Maybe. Okay. Okay. So let's go back to the closing remarks. In our roundtable, we discussed educational trends and their connections with international youth interaction, the remittance economy, developing better education practices for a sustainable world. It is clear that educational innovations can lead us through change of learning, teaching, and new educational environments to a more just, beautiful, and peaceful world. It's our mission to save this world for the future generations, despite all obstacles, even those which seem irresistible. Thank you for your time and participation, and let applause to our respectful speakers. Thank you, guys. Thank you.